test. It goes same for organizations or startups or any product. You need to keep on testing. You need to frequently test to make sure that you understand any vulnerabilities in your system. Because regardless of the firewalls or SOCs or threat intel tools that you have, regardless of the compliance, that doesn't give you any guarantee that product is secure. The only way that you can ensure that the product is at least halfway there is to test, and then fix them. Both of them are ridiculously hard. I mean, now as a community, we are realizing that fixing bugs are equally hard as finding bugs. So again, these are not easy steps. So yeah, I think I gave you a pretty good sort of a framework. If you have any questions, please type it on the chat. I will answer them as soon as possible. Okay. So I mean, moving forward, I'm just going to focus on testing. So what are the different testing that's available? I mean, as I said earlier, with the advancement of technology, amount of funding poured into security, there are a variety of security testing tools around the world. I think for a startup, just a basic internal QA, right? There are a lot of open source tools that you can run on the code, and then will show you your security posture, like these are the vulnerabilities. What they do is they have sort of a internal database of all the previously known vulnerabilities, security issues, and then they just match your code against any of them. And I mean, that's a pretty good start. I mean, one of the research that we conducted a couple of years ago, which Nipuna did, found that 78% of the vulnerabilities that the products ship are previously known. That means that they could have very easily fixed them. And then there's a notion called penetration testing, or we call it pen testing. It could be internal or external. Most of the big companies like Google, they have their own internal pen testing teams. But for an organization, I think even in Sri Lanka, there are companies offering pen testing. What they do is like they do like a 2-3 weeks engagement. They run a bunch of tools. And then they try to sort of tell you these are the vulnerabilities that they find. So the objective of penetration testing is to find as many bugs as possible. And fuzzing tools. So fuzzing tools is also sometimes used by pen testers. What they do is they try to enumerate all sort of input to your product and then see how it can break into your system. So the blue teaming, it's as I said earlier, it's one of the tools, one of the approaches to make sure that you have proper visibility into your own networks, your own employees, your own sort of like backyard, so to speak. Blue teaming tell you what are the different tools that you should implement, where you should implement them, what sort of things that you should monitor. And then the red teaming is probably the most expensive engagement there. Is if you remember, the penetration testing is about finding as many vulnerabilities as possible. So they will produce a big report saying that you have 100 vulnerabilities or 200, you need to fix them. Red teaming is a different concept. Red teaming, they don't really care about finding, n number of vulnerabilities. They just care about whether a certain objective can be achieved. So the red teaming organizations, they don't do red teaming like every month or so. They do it maybe twice a year. I think it's recommended you should do red teaming at least once a year, a minimum. So the red team is, so for an example, if you are a company organization that design a military aircraft, next generation, seventh generation stealth aircraft. So red teaming engagement, what they will do is the organization will tell the red team, we want to make sure that that particular design is not touchable, that no one can access that sensitive design. So they don't actually care how many vulnerabilities there are. They don't care how vulnerable the networks are. They just worry that that particular piece of design is safe. So the red team engagement, what they do is they don't go around and find vulnerabilities. What they do is they try to break into the organization, maybe physically, maybe over networks, maybe doing social engineering, whatever means it takes. They just want to achieve a particular objective. That's what they do. So red teaming, it's going deep as much as possible. But the pen testing is about achieving as much as the breadth. So red teaming is also, you can view as a validation of the blue team. So if you have a good blue team, they should detect the red team activities. When you actually do a red team, most of the employees in the organization are not aware of it. Only one or two people will know about it because they want to simulate a real attack as possible, as much as possible. So they will, as part of the red team engagement, they will validate all the blue team controls in place in the network. With the given the cost of red teaming and then historical rift between red teaming and blue team, because red team will come and tell you how bad the blue team is, and the blue team will go all defensive. So to avoid that conflict, industry sort of like came up with this notion called purple teaming, where the team has both blue and red team members, and then they work together. And then the orange teaming, it's a notion where um, uh, the only security that they are testing is how good your employees are. The only tactic that they are going to use is social engineering. They will keep off trying to sort of break into employees. They will do fear phishing. They will try to understand, they will spear phishing means that a very targeted spam email, even Google filters might not catch it most of the time. I mean, big organizations like Google have it, but yeah. So the vulnerability scans means that that they place tools around the network that periodically scan it and then generate reports. And then finally, bug bounty. So you could think bug bounty as security testing meets crowdsourcing. So if you know the notion of crowdsourcing means that you ask help from the public to certain tasks. I mean, a lot of people do crowdsourcing for so many different. I mean, computer science research use crowdsourcing all over, and then they are economically attractive, and then these people are skilled people. They know what they're doing, and then organizations can avoid a lot of expensive contracts, upfront contracts. And then so the bug bounty is that you ask the public to help and test our systems, not the internal systems, external endpoints, external apps, any public facing components. And then so that's probably the new kid on the block for security testing. And then as I mentioned earlier, there are sort of like different abstracts in security testing. Breadth versus depth. You want to understand as many vulnerabilities as possible, or you want to deep dive and sort of like try to understand how exploitable these things are and what could expose it. And there is the static versus dynamic. And then the last two is probably the most important. I think there's a lot of shift towards automating a lot of things, which is good, saves time. And then but in terms of security testing, the general acceptance is that yes, tools will help you, that will give you a big portion of vulnerabilities, but the more critical ones, the most sensitive vulnerabilities are captured by humans, not using tools, especially 0-day vulnerabilities not known previously. They are captured through humans. So that, and then finally, as I said earlier,